Terminal 4 at LAX airport was buzzing with voices in dozens of languages. Ina Kozlowskite stood by the baggage carousel, clutching a crumpled piece of paper with an address and phone number. Her only suitcase, a worn brown bag she had inherited from her grandmother, slowly made its way down the conveyor belt among the shiny modern suitcases of other passengers. 26 hours on the road. Vilnius, Frankfurt, Los Angeles. On the plane, she tried to imagine what David would look like. They had been exchanging messages for 3 months through an international marriage agency, but she had only seen him in one blurry photo. 42 years old, owner of a cleaning company, lives in his own house. That was enough for the contract. Ina, she turned around. A short man in a wrinkled shirt and jeans was looking at her with a forced smile. His hair was thinning, and his face was covered with 2 days' stubble. He looked tired. "David? Welcome to America." He didn't hug her, just nodded toward the exit. "The car's in the parking lot." Ina picked up her suitcase, but David didn't offer to help. They walked silently through the crowd of people with flowers and balloons. The car, an old Honda with cracked upholstery, smelled of cigarettes and coffee. "Are you tired?" David asked as he pulled out of the parking lot. "Yes, it was a long flight." "You'll get used to it. Things are different here than in Lithuania." Ina looked out the window at the endless rows of palm trees and billboards. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange. She imagined Los Angeles as it appeared in Hollywood movies: snow-white mansions, ocean shores, gleaming skyscrapers. But David drove through neighborhoods with one-story houses, graffiti-covered fences, and dried-up lawns. "Are we there yet?" she asked. "About 20 minutes." David turned on the radio. Spanish music began to play. Ina closed her eyes, trying to collect her thoughts. 3 years ago, she had graduated from university in Vilnius with a degree in international relations, but there were no jobs. Her parents had lost their family restaurant due to the pandemic. Her younger brother needed money for medical treatment. When a friend told her about an agency that helps Lithuanian girls marry Americans, Ina laughed at first. Then she changed her mind. The agreement was simple. A sham marriage for 2 years, she gets a green card, he gets tax benefits. No obligations except to live together for immigration checks. Ina paid the agency $3,000, all her savings. David was supposed to pay another $5,000 after the paperwork was done. "Here's the house," David said, turning into a narrow alley. The house was a small, one-story building with peeling siding. The tiny yard was covered with artificial grass. The neighboring houses looked exactly the same, rows of identical boxes separated by low fences. "Not Beverly Hills, of course," David chuckled as he got out of the car, "but it'll do for a start." Ina picked up her suitcase and followed him to the front door. David took out a bunch of keys, but the door opened before he could put the key in the lock. "Finally," said the tall man in the doorway. He had neatly trimmed hair and an expensive shirt. "I was getting worried." "Ina, this is Stefan, my husband," David said. "Stefan, this is Ina." Stefan held out his hand. His handshake was firm, but brief. "Welcome to our home. David has told me a lot about you." Ina was taken aback. The agency's documents didn't mention that David was married. She wanted to ask, but Stefan had already taken her suitcase and led her into the house. The air smelled of air freshener, and something was cooking in the kitchen. The living room was small but clean. The furniture looked cheap but well cared for. On the wall hung photos of David and Stefan in different places, on the beach, in the mountains, at some kind of celebration. "Sit down," Stefan said. "I made dinner." Ina sat down on the sofa without taking off her jacket. David disappeared into another room. Stefan brought a plate of chicken and rice. "Thank you," said Ina, "but I'm not very hungry." "I understand. It was a long flight." Stefan sat down opposite her. "David said you studied international relations?" "Yes, at Vilnius University." "Excellent. We have a few clients who speak Lithuanian. It could come in handy." "Clients?" "At David's company. We clean offices, restaurants, private homes, lots of work." Ina nodded, though she didn't understand. David returned with a folder of documents. "You need to sign something," he said, placing the papers on the table. Formalities for marriage. Ina glanced at the documents. The text was in English in small print. She understood the general meaning, but many of the legal terms were unfamiliar to her. "Can I read it carefully first?" "There's nothing to read," David said. "Standard paperwork. Sign here, here, and here." He pointed to the places where she should sign. Ina picked up a pen but hesitated. "Where are my documents? My passport? My visa?" "I'll take them," Stefan said. "For safety. Until you get your green card, it's best to keep them in the safe." "But I need my passport." "What for?" David asked. "You're not going anywhere, are you?" Ina looked at both of them. Something in their tone made her wary. "I just want to know where my documents are." "They'll be safe," Stefan repeated. "Trust me." She signed the documents, even though her inner voice told her not to. David gathered the papers and put them in a folder. "Will you show me my room?" Ina asked. "Of course," said Stefan. "But first, we need to discuss something." They went into a small study next to the living room. Stefan closed the door. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice becoming harder. "There are rules you have to follow." "Rules?" "First, don't tell anyone that our marriage is a sham, not even a hint." "I understand." "Second, don't leave the house without permission. Los Angeles is dangerous. You could get lost or into trouble." "But I'm not a child." "Third," Stefan continued, ignoring her objection, "no phone calls to Lithuania without our knowledge. Immigration may be listening. How will I communicate with my parents?" "Once a week, under our supervision." Ina felt a chill run down her spine. These weren't safety rules. These were prison rules. "What if I don't agree?" David and Stefan exchanged glances. "Then we'll terminate the contract," David said, "and we'll report the attempted sham marriage to the immigration service. You'll be deported, and your family won't get the money they were promised." "The money you promised?" "We made a deal. $5,000 to your family after you get your green card." Ina didn't remember that condition, but it didn't matter now. "I'm tired," she said. "I want to go to bed." "Of course," Stefan smiled. "Tomorrow is your first day at work." Her room was tiny. A bed, a table, an old wardrobe. The window looked out onto a courtyard with 2 dead trees. There was no lock on the door from the inside. Ina sat down on the bed and took out her phone. The signal was weak, but the internet was working. She wanted to text her mom, but then she remembered Stefan's words about control. Instead, she opened a map and tried to figure out where she was. The neighborhood was called Panorama City, far from the center, far from the beaches, far from the glitz of Hollywood. She could hear muffled voices coming from the next room. David and Stefan were discussing something, but she couldn't make out the words. Ina went to the window and tried to open it. It was locked. She returned to the bed and opened her suitcase. Among her belongings was a photograph of her with her parents and brother at a party last year. Everyone was smiling. Her brother wasn't sick yet. The restaurant was still open, and the future seemed full of possibilities. "What have I done?" she whispered. The conversation behind the wall died down. The house was plunged into silence. Ina lay down on the bed without undressing. The lights of the city shone through the thin curtains. Millions of lights, each hiding someone's life, someone's story, someone's dreams. She had flown to the City of Angels, but it seemed that angels did not live here. The alarm clock rang at 5 in the morning. Ina had been awake for an hour, lying on an unfamiliar bed and listening to the sounds of a strange house. Water was dripping somewhere, the refrigerator was humming, and the floorboards creaked under someone's footsteps. "Get up!" Stefan's voice came from right outside the door. "Breakfast is in half an hour." Ina got up and went to the window. Dawn was just breaking. The sky was gray and dull. In the yard of the neighboring house, a man in work clothes was loading equipment into a van. Normal life for normal people. In the bathroom, she discovered that the shampoo and soap were gone. Instead, there was a note. "Ask Stefan if you need anything." Ina washed her face with cold water and went to the kitchen. "Good morning," said Stefan without looking up from the newspaper. There was a bowl of oatmeal and a glass of water on the table. Where's David? He left early. Negotiations with a new client. Stefan glanced at his watch. Eat quickly. We're late. Late for what? To work. I told you it's your first day. Ina sat down at the table. The oatmeal was bland without sugar or milk. Where's my phone? What? My cell phone. It was on the nightstand. Stefan folded the newspaper and looked at her intently. I took it to charge. American sockets are different. You need an adapter. When can I use it? When we've sorted out the paperwork. Now's not the time to get distracted. Ina wanted to argue, but Stefan had already got up and was heading for the door. Get dressed. Dark jeans, white t-shirt. They should be in the wardrobe. She went back to her room and opened the closet. Sure enough, there were jeans and several t-shirts hanging there. All new, but cheap. They were her size. How did they know? 20 minutes later, they were sitting in the same beat-up Honda. Stefan drove in silence, tuning the radio to a Spanish station. Ina looked out the window at the city waking up. Workers with thermoses of coffee were walking to bus stops. Women were taking their children to school. Life. How many people work here? She asked. In the company? 20 people. Maybe more. Are they all immigrants? Stefan glanced at her quickly. What does it matter? It's a job. The Sunrise cleaning office was located in an industrial area between a car repair shop and a building materials warehouse. It was a one-story building with peeling paint and a sign where half the letters were no longer illuminated. Inside, it smelled of chemicals and dampness. The large room was filled with shelves of cleaning supplies, vacuum cleaners, and carts with rags and brushes. People in work clothes were sitting against the wall, mostly women with a few men. Everyone was silent. This is Ina, Stefan announced. She's new. Rita, show her what to do. A woman in her 40s with tired eyes and gray streaks in her dark hair approached them. She was short but sturdy, with calloused hands. Hello, she said with an accent. I'm Rita. I'm from Guatemala. Ina, I'm from Lithuania. That's far away. Rita nodded. Come on, I'll show you. Stefan disappeared into the office. Rita led Ina to the shelves. Here's your trolley. Here's your tools. Here's the list of places for today. She handed her a sheet of paper with addresses on it. Can you read English? Yes. Good. Many people can't. Rita lowered her voice. Listen carefully, work quickly, but do a good job. There must be no complaints. If a customer is dissatisfied, you'll have problems. What kind of problems? All kinds. It's better not to know. They loaded the cart and headed for the exit. Rita stopped at the office. Stefan, we're leaving. Be back by 6, he shouted from behind the door. And no stops. The first job was at an insurance company in the city center. 40 floors of glass and steel, a marble lobby with security guards, elevators with gold buttons. Ina had never seen anything like it. It's beautiful, she said. On the outside, Rita replied. Inside, it's the same. Dirt, trash, other people's problems. They went up to the 27th floor, an open space with dozens of workstations, conference rooms, and a kitchen for employees. The employees hadn't arrived yet, but traces of their presence were everywhere. Coffee stains on the tables, crumbs on the floor, overflowing trash cans. Let's start with the bathrooms, said Rita. Let's do the most unpleasant thing first. For the next 2 hours, Ina scrubbed toilets, sinks, and mirrors. The cleaning products burned her hands even through gloves. Rita worked quickly and silently, only occasionally showing her how to do things right. How do you know Stefan? Ina asked during a short break. I don't know him. I've been working here for 3 years. And before that, I had another job before that, also cleaning. Rita sat down on the stairs. Listen, girl, you're new here, so I'll tell you. It's better not to ask questions here. Why? Because some questions are better left unanswered. Ina wanted to ask something else, but Rita had already gotten up and walked away. The second location was a restaurant in Hollywood. After last night, the kitchen looked like a battlefield. Grease on the stoves, food scraps on the floor, mountains of dirty dishes, the smell of rancid oil and stale food. How much do they pay us? Ina asked, scraping burnt sauce off a baking sheet. You? Rita shrugged. I don't know. It varies. And you? Enough to survive? That's not an answer. Rita stopped and looked at her. Want some advice? Don't count other people's money. It's not done here. By evening, they had driven to 4 more locations, 2 offices, a small hotel, and a private home in Beverly Hills, a mansion with a pool, a garden, and a 3-car garage. The owners were away, and the house was empty. Rich people, said Ina, wiping the marble countertop in the kitchen. Yes, but their dirt smells the same as everyone else's. Are you always so gloomy? I'm a realist. Rita gathered the trash into a bag. When I came to America, I thought everything would be different here, that I'd be rich and happy. 10 years have passed. I'm still cleaning up other people's mess. What about your family, husband, children? They stayed in Guatemala. I was supposed to bring them over a year ago, but a year turned into 10. Why didn't you go back? Because at least there's work here. There's nothing there. They returned to the office as the sun was setting. Stefan checked their work against the photos sent by clients. Not bad for your first day, he said to Ina, but you need to work faster. I tried my best. Try harder tomorrow. On the way home, Ina tried to calculate how much she had earned. 11 hours of work. In Lithuania, she would have earned about 40 euros for a day like this. It should be more here. When will I get paid? She asked. At the end of the week, Stefan replied. In cash. How much? We'll talk to David. At home, David was sitting in the kitchen with a beer and a sandwich. He looked satisfied. How's it going, worker bee? He asked. I'm tired. I want to take a shower. Sure, but let's have dinner first. Dinner consisted of reheated pizza and salad from a bag. David talked about his negotiations with a client. A chain of cafes wanted to change cleaning companies. It was a big contract. Good money. Speaking of money, said Ina, how much will I be getting? As much as you earn, replied David. How much is that in numbers? It's too early to say. You're still on probation. How long is that? As long as it takes. Ina felt the conversation was going nowhere. She got up from the table. Can I use the phone? I want to call my parents. It's late. It's nighttime in Lithuania. It's morning there. Call tomorrow. You promised once a week. David and Stefan exchanged glances. Okay, said Stefan, but only 5 minutes. And just to say that everything is fine. He took her phone out of the desk drawer. Ina dialed her mother's number. Long beeps. Finally, a familiar voice. Ina, my daughter. Hi, Mom. How are you? How's America? Ina looked at David and Stefan. They sat next to her, listening intently. Everything's fine. My husband is good. Work is okay. And the house? Is it nice? Yes, it's beautiful. Mom, how's Andres? She asked about her brother. Better. The doctors say the operation will help, but we need money. We'll get the money, said Ina, keeping her eyes on Stefan. Soon. When can we visit you? It's too early. We need to get the paperwork done. Time, said Stefan, holding out his hand. Mom, I have to go. I'll call you back. Take care, sweetheart. We love you. Stefan took the phone and put it back in the drawer. See? Nothing to worry about, he said. Mom's happy. Ina went to her room. She stood under the hot water in the shower and cried. Salty tears mixed with the water and ran down the drain. She thought about her mom, her sick brother, and her home, which now seemed like it was on another planet. When she returned to her room, her work clothes for tomorrow were lying on the bed. The same jeans, the same t-shirt, a prisoner's uniform. She lay down and closed her eyes. She could hear David and Stefan's voices through the wall. They were discussing something, but she couldn't make out the words. Ina listened. One word was repeated more often than others. Money. She tried to open the window, but it was locked. She tried to open the door. It wasn't locked, but the light was on in the hallway and she could hear footsteps. Ina returned to bed and stared at the ceiling. Her first day of work was over. How many days would there be like this? How long could she endure it? Somewhere in the city, millions of people were falling asleep in their homes, next to their loved ones, safe. And she was lying in a strange room, in a strange house, among strangers who controlled her every move. Something rustled in the pocket of the jeans hanging on the chair. Ina got up and checked. It was a small piece of paper. It read, "If you need help, call Maria Gonzalez, Immigrant Assistance Center, 323-555-0147. When had Rita managed to do this? And why? Ina hid the note under her mattress. Tomorrow she would find a way to call that number. The third week in Los Angeles began with Ina waking up to the sound of an argument. David and Stefan's voices came from the kitchen through the thin walls. "This can't go on forever," Stefan said. "Maybe if we do everything right," David replied. "What if someone suspects something?" "Who? She doesn't know anyone. We have her documents. Even if she wants to leave, where would she go?" Ina quietly got up and went to the door. They were talking about her. "Rita's asking questions," Stefan continued. "Yesterday she asked how much we pay her. Rita's been working for us for 3 years. She knows the rules. She knows. But she likes that girl. She might do something stupid. Then we'll find Rita another job, far away from here." Stefan laughed, but there was no joy in his laughter. "How's Karina?" "Karina's own fault. She talked too much." Ina froze. Who was Karina? She had never heard that name before. "Get up!" David shouted. "We're late!" Ina quickly returned to bed and pretended to be asleep. A minute later, the door opened. "Get up! Breakfast is in 5 minutes!" At breakfast, Stefan was particularly attentive. He brought fresh towels, asked how she slept, and even smiled. "Today will be an easy day," he said. "Only 4 jobs. You'll be done by 5. "Okay." Ina finished her coffee. "Stefan, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "When will I get paid for my work?" "Soon. David said you're doing a good job. Your trial period is almost over." "How much will I get?" "Enough!" Stefan got up from the table. "Let's go." In the car, Ina decided to ask the question that had been bothering her since morning. "Who is Karina?" Stefan slammed on the brakes at a red light. He was silent for a few seconds. "Where did you hear that name?" "I don't remember. Maybe Rita mentioned it." "Rita says a lot of things. Not all of it is true." "But who is Karina?" "A girl who used to work for us. She went back home." "Where is home?" "Poland. Or the Czech Republic. I don't remember." Stefan turned up the radio. The conversation was over. Rita was waiting by the shelves in the office. She looked worried. "Hi," she said quietly. "How's it going?" "Fine. How about you? Let's talk in the car." They loaded the cart and drove to their first destination, an office building in West Hollywood. On the way, Rita glanced in the rearview mirror several times. "Is someone following us?" Ina asked. "No, but we should be careful." "Rita, who is Karina?" Rita swerved into a fast food parking lot and turned off the engine. "How do you know that name?" "I heard David and Stefan talking about it." "Damn." Rita closed her eyes. "Listen carefully. Karina was a Polish girl. She arrived a year and a half ago, also for a sham marriage." "Also? You think she was the first?" "Ina, I've seen 7 girls like that in 3 years, from different countries, all the same story." Ina's throat went dry. "What happened to them?" "Officially, they went back home. They weren't suitable for marriage." "And unofficially?" Karina was smart. She started asking questions, looking for a way out. She found Maria's phone number. "Maria Gonzalez?" "Yes." Karina called her and told her about the situation. Maria came to the office and wanted to talk to David. "And what happened?" "David said that Karina had already left. He showed her a plane ticket and a note from the hospital saying that she was sick and couldn't work." "A note from the hospital?" "A fake one. They have connections." Rita started the engine. Maria didn't believe him, but there was no proof. Karina disappeared. Maybe she really left? Maybe, but why didn't she take her things? Why didn't she say goodbye to me? We were friends. They drove to the office building in silence. Ina tried to process what she had heard. 7 girls in 3 years, all disappeared. "Rita, why are you telling me this?" "Because I like you, and because I'm afraid the same thing will happen to you." "What should I do?" "Be careful. Don't ask any unnecessary questions, and find a way to contact Maria." "How?" I don't know, but quickly. I feel like there's not much time. The workday passed in a fog. Ina mechanically washed, vacuumed, and dusted, but her thoughts were elsewhere. 7 girls, all disappeared. Would she be the 8th? In the evening, the atmosphere at home was tense. David was on the phone, Stefan was sitting at the computer. When Ina came in, they stopped what they were doing. "How was work?" David asked. "Fine." "Did Rita say anything strange?" "No. What should she say?" "Nothing. Just curious." At dinner, Stefan was particularly talkative. He talked about his plans for the weekend, new clients, and how well business was going. He talked too much for someone who was usually so quiet. "By the way," he said, cutting the pizza, "you'll have a new partner tomorrow." "Where's Rita?" "She's sick. The flu. She'll be home for a few days." "Really?" "The doctor said it's contagious. Better not to have any contact." Ina nodded, but didn't believe a word. After dinner, she went to her room. In the hallway, she heard a snippet of conversation. "She knows too much," David said. "Don't worry, everything's under control." "What if it's not?" "Then we'll take measures." Ina lay down on her bed and took out the note with Maria's number. She had to find a way to call her. But how? Stefan had the phone. The computer was locked with a password, and she couldn't leave the house. She got up and went to the window. The courtyard was quiet. The neighboring houses were asleep, but one window was lit. A woman in a bathrobe was feeding a small child. An ordinary mother, an ordinary family. Ina tried to open the window again. It gave way. The lock was broken. She quietly opened the window and looked outside. It was 2 meters to the ground. She could jump. But where would she go in the middle of the night? Where would she find a phone? And what would she do if she was caught? She closed the window and went back to bed. No, escape was not an option. She needed another plan. In the morning, Stefan introduced her to his new partner. Juan was a short man in his 50s with kind eyes and gold teeth. He spoke with a strong accent and smiled often. "I'm from Mexico," he said. "I've been working here for 2 years. Good people, good work." "How's the money?" Ina asked in the car. "It's okay. I pay for my room and send money to my family. The rest is for food." "How much do they pay you?" "Enough." Juan paused. "Haven't you been paid yet?" "They say it's a trial period. A long trial period." They worked in a shopping center in Santa Monica. It was a large complex with shops, cafes, and offices. There were lots of people and lots of hustle and bustle. Ina thought she might be able to find a phone there. During her lunch break, she told Juan she was going to the restroom. Instead, she headed for the information desk. "Excuse me," she said to the girl at the counter. "Can I use the phone? It's an emergency." "Of course. Here you go." Ina dialed Maria's number. Long beeps. Finally, someone answered. "Immigrant Assistance Center, Maria speaking." "Hello? My name is Ina. I need help." "What's the problem?" "I'm from Lithuania. I came here for a sham marriage, but Ina..." She turned around. Stefan was standing 10 meters away from her. "Sorry, wrong number," she said quickly into the phone and hung up. "What are you doing?" Stefan asked. "I called Lithuania. I wanted to know how my brother was doing. We agreed. I'm sorry. I'm very worried about him." Stefan took her by the hand. He squeezed it tightly. "Let's go." They walked to the car in silence. Juan was waiting by the trunk. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing," Stefan replied. "Let's go home." "But the workday isn't over." "It's over for you." Stefan didn't say a word on the way home. Ina looked out the window and wondered if Maria had figured out who had called. David was waiting for her at home. He was sitting in the kitchen with a serious expression on his face. "Sit down," he said. Ina sat down. Stefan remained standing by the door. "We need to talk," David began. "I think you're misunderstanding the situation." "What situation?" "You're not here as a tourist. You're here on a contract. The contract has terms and conditions. I'm following them. Not all of them. Today you broke one of the main rules." "Which one?" No independent phone calls. David stood up and walked over to her. "Who did you call?" "Home. My brother." "You're lying." "No. We checked. None of your relatives received a call." Ina realized she was caught. "Then who did you call?" I don't remember the number. I must have dialed the wrong number. David hit her in the face. Not hard, but it hurt. Don't lie to me. I'm not lying! The second blow was harder. Ina tasted blood. Who did you call? The information service. I wanted to know how to call Lithuania. Last time. Who did you call? Ina looked at him, then at Stefan. There was no sympathy in their eyes. No one. I dialed the wrong number. David sighed. Fine. Let's play a different game. He nodded to Stefan. Stefan left the kitchen and returned with a phone. Maria Gonzalez, Stefan read from the screen. Immigrant Assistance Center. Missed call an hour ago. Where did you get her number? David asked. Ina was silent. Did Rita give it to you? Silence. I see. David sat down opposite her. Do you know what happened to Karina? Stefan said she went home. Not exactly. Karina also called Maria. She wanted to leave too. And we helped her. Permanently. The room became very quiet. Ina could only hear her own heartbeat. What did you do to her? What we had to. She didn't understand the rules. You killed her? We protected our business. Karina was a threat. David stood up and walked over to the window. You see, Ina, you have a choice. You can continue working, fulfill the terms of your contract and get paid. In 2 years, you'll get a green card and be free. And if I don't want to, then the same thing will happen to you as happened to Karina. But I won't tell anyone. It's too late. You already called Maria. She'll be looking for you. That means you're already a threat. Stefan took a knife out of his pocket. It was small but sharp. What will you choose? David asked. Ina looked at the knife, then at their faces. She realized they weren't joking. Karina was dead. She would be next. I'll work, she said quietly. Good. But now the rules have changed. How? No leaving without an escort, no phone calls, no talking to strangers. What about my parents? Forget about your parents. Your new family is here. David nodded to Stefan. He hid the knife. Go to your room. Tomorrow you'll go back to work. Ina stood up, her legs trembling, and walked toward the door. And one more thing, David said. If you try to run away or contact anyone, we'll find you, and then history will repeat itself. In her room, Ina sat down on the bed and cried. She was trapped with no way out. Karina was dead. Rita had disappeared. Maria only knew her name. She went to the window and looked out at the sleeping neighborhood. Somewhere out there, in one of the houses, Karina's body lay. Somewhere, Rita was afraid for her life. Somewhere, Maria was trying to understand what was happening. And she was sitting in her prison room, waiting for them to come for her. But maybe all was not lost. Maria knew her name. Maybe she would figure out what to do. Ina lay down on the bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be a new day, and perhaps her last chance. A week had passed since the threats. Ina worked under constant surveillance. Stefan never left her side, and in the evenings she was locked in her room. The lock on the door appeared the day after the conversation in the kitchen. On Friday morning, she woke up to a strange noise. There was a police car outside the window. Her heart began to race. Had Maria found their address? Get up! Stefan shouted from the hallway. His voice sounded tense. Ina quickly got dressed and went out. A policeman was standing in the living room. A tall man of about 35 with attentive gray eyes. Detective Riley, he introduced himself. I'm investigating the disappearance of a girl named Ina Kozlowskite. Ina froze. David and Stefan stood next to the policeman, their faces calm. This is my wife, David said, putting his hand on Ina's shoulder. She's here. Can I talk to her alone? The detective asked. Of course, but why? She hasn't gone anywhere. Riley looked at Ina. She saw the question in his eyes. Is everything okay? How are you, ma'am? He asked. Are you Ina Kozlowskite? Yes, she replied quietly. The Immigration Help Center received a call from a girl with that name. She asked for help, but the line went dead. David's hand tightened on her shoulder. I called the wrong number, Ina said. I wanted to call home in Lithuania. I see. Riley took out his notebook. Why don't you call from a landline? No international service, Stefan replied quickly. Too expensive. What about a cell phone? It's broken. We ordered a new one. The detective nodded, but Aina could see he didn't believe them. Can we look around the house? Riley asked. Do you have a warrant? David asked. No, but if you have nothing to hide. Of course. Come in. They walked through the house. Riley examined the rooms carefully, writing something down. He lingered longer in Aina's room. Is this where you sleep? He asked. Yes. Is the lock on the outside normal? For security, said Stefan. There have been some break-ins in the neighborhood. Riley tried to open the window. It wouldn't budge. Is the window locked? The mechanism is broken. We're going to have it fixed. The detective finished his inspection and returned to the living room. Everything's fine, he said. Sorry for the trouble. He headed for the door, but turned back at the threshold. Ma'am, if you need any help, here's my card. He held out his business card. David caught it before Aina could. Thanks, detective, but we won't need any help. When the police car drove away, David closed the door and turned to Aina. Smart, very smart. I didn't do anything. Of course not. Maria figured out where to find you herself. Stefan took out his phone and dialed a number. It's me. Problem. The police were here. Yes, the detective. No, he doesn't suspect anything yet, but he may come back. He went into another room, continuing the conversation. David sat down opposite Aina. Do you know what this means? What? That you've become too dangerous, like Karina. I didn't tell the police anything. Not yet, but he'll be back. He'll ask questions. Sooner or later, you'll break down. Stefan returned from his phone. What did he say? David asked. We need to solve the problem. Tonight. What problem? Aina asked, even though she already knew the answer. You, David said. I'm sorry, but there's no other way. Aina felt the ground slip away beneath her feet. But I promised to keep quiet. Promises don't work when the police are involved. Give me another chance. You've had your chance. Stefan looked at his watch. We have until tonight. We need to get ready. Ready for what? An alibi, a plane ticket in your name, a note saying you suddenly fell ill and decided to go home. What about Karina? Exactly. David stood up. Go to your room. Rest. The last day should be peaceful. Aina walked to her room on shaky legs. The lock clicked behind her. She sat down on the bed and tried to think. A few hours until death. What could she do? The window still wouldn't open. The door was locked. There was no phone. But there had to be some way. She got up and began searching the room. In a desk drawer, she found an old pen and some sheets of paper. Write a note? But to whom? And how would she get it to them? Then she remembered the crack in the wall near the bed. It was small, almost invisible, but if she widened it... Aina took the pen and began to carefully pick at the plaster. After half an hour, the crack widened. There was something behind the wall, another room or a storage closet. She continued working. She hid the bits of plaster under the mattress. By lunchtime, the hole was big enough to stick her hand through. Behind the wall was a storage room with boxes and old furniture. Aina squeezed through the hole and found herself in a dark space. It smelled of dust and damp. Cardboard boxes stood in the corner. One of them was labeled, Karina, Belongings. Her heart stopped. She opened the box. Inside were women's clothes, cosmetics, and documents. A Polish passport in the name of Karina Nowak. A photograph of a girl of about 25 with kind eyes and light hair. The other boxes contained the belongings of other girls. Elena, Romania. Natasha, Ukraine, Anna, Hungary. 7 boxes, 7 lives. In the last box, Aina found a folder with documents. Fake medical certificates, plane tickets that the girls had never used. A whole system for covering up murders. But where were the bodies? Aina continued to search. In the corner of the storage room stood another box larger than the others. It had no label. Inside were photographs. Aina took one and held it up to the crack of light. What she saw made her cover her mouth with her hand to keep from screaming. The photo was of Karina, dead, tied up, in a basement or garage. Other photos showed the rest of the girls, all dead. David and Stefan didn't just kill them, they photographed their crimes. At the bottom of the box was a notebook. Ina opened it. A list of names, dates, and amounts of money. An accounting of death. Karina Novak arrived March 15, 2023, killed September 2, 2023. Income, $23,000. Elena Popescu arrived 07.11.2022, killed the 28th of April, 2023. Income, $31,000. Each line was someone's life, reduced to numbers. On the last page was written, Ina Kozlowskite arrived on June 15, 2025. Plan, elimination on July 3, 2025. Today is July 3rd. Ina hid the notebook and several photos under her clothes and crawled back into her room. She had to get the evidence to the police. But how? She took a pen and wrote a note. Detective Riley, David and Stefan Mitchell killed 7 girls. The evidence is in the storage room behind my room. They're going to kill me tonight. Ina Kozlowskite. She wrapped the note and photos in a rag and hid them under her mattress. But that wasn't enough. Someone had to find the evidence after she was dead. Then she remembered her neighbor, the woman with the child she had seen in the window. If she threw the note into her yard, Ina went to the window and tried it again. This time it gave way. The lock wasn't completely broken. She opened the window and looked out. The neighbor's house was about 10 meters away. If she aimed carefully, she could throw the note to their door. She heard footsteps in the hallway. Ina quickly closed the window and lay down on the bed. How's it going? Stefan asked through the door. Fine. Dinner will be ready in an hour. When the footsteps faded away, Ina went back to the window. She had to wait for the right moment. At 6 o'clock in the evening, a car pulled up to the house. Ina looked out and saw an unfamiliar man in work clothes. He went into the house, talked to David and Stefan, then went into the garage. They were getting ready. At 7, Stefan brought dinner. Chicken and rice, just like on the first day. Last supper, he said with a smirk. How much time do I have? 2 hours, maybe 3. Depends on how quickly our man arrives. Person? The one who will get rid of your body. We have a place. Where do you bury the girls? We don't bury them. We burn them. We scatter the ashes in the ocean. No traces. Stefan left, locking the door behind him again. Ina ate a few spoonfuls and went to the window. The light was on in the neighboring house. The woman was home. She took the note and several photographs, wrapped them in a piece of cloth, and tied a small stone to it for weight. Then she opened the window and took aim. The first throw didn't reach the target. The bundle fell onto the lawn between the houses, the second one too. But the third one hit the target, right at the neighbor's front door. Ina closed the window and lay down on the bed. Now, all she had to do was wait. Either the neighbor would find the note and call the police, or, at 9 o'clock in the evening, the door opened. David, Stefan, and a stranger in work clothes entered. The time has come, David said. Wait, Ina asked. Can I ask one question? What is it? Why are you doing this? Is it for money? David laughed. Not just money, although that's important. In 2 years, each of you brings us about $30,000. And then you become dangerous. You start demanding freedom, green cards, money. It's easier to start with a new one. How many girls have you killed? 7. You'll be the 8th. Is the 9th one on her way? Next week. From Moldova, a pretty girl. Stefan took out a syringe. It won't hurt, he said. You'll fall asleep and won't wake up. Like Karina? Karina fought back. I had to use a knife. It'll be easier with you. The stranger grabbed Ina by the arms. She tried to break free, but he was stronger. Wait, she cried. I know where the money is hidden. What money? Karina found your hiding place. She told me where you keep the cash. David and Stefan exchanged glances. You're lying. Check it. In the storage room behind the red box. There's an empty paint can. Karina said you keep your earnings there. Stefan left the room. He returned a minute later. The can is there, but it's been empty for a year. So Karina did steal something before she died. Where's the money? Let go of me, I'll show you. The stranger loosened his grip. Ina jerked away and ran to the window. Get her! But it was too late. Ina broke the glass with her fist and screamed at the top of her lungs, Help! They're killing her! Police! David grabbed her and pulled her away from the window. Quiet, bitch! But it was too late. Lights came on in the neighboring houses. Someone looked out the window. We have to go, said the stranger. There's too much noise. No, David replied. Let's finish this. He picked up the knife Stefan had dropped. The blade glinted in the lamplight. Goodbye, Ina. The knife came down. Ina closed her eyes. But the blow did not reach its target. There was the sound of breaking glass, screams, and the sound of running feet. Police! Hands up! David turned around. Detective Riley was standing in the window with a gun in his hands. Other police officers were visible behind him. Drop the knife! Now! Go to hell! David swung the knife, but Riley fired. David fell, the knife slipping from his hands. Stefan tried to escape, but was caught in the hallway. The stranger surrendered without resistance. Ina lay on the floor, unable to believe she was alive. It's okay, Riley said, helping her to her feet. You're safe. How did you find me? Your neighbor. She found a note and photos in the yard. She called us right away. Ina looked toward the neighbor's house. A woman was standing in the window with a child in her arms. She waved. Thank you, Ina whispered. David was lying on the floor, gasping for air. He had been shot in the chest. Paramedics were trying to stop the bleeding, but it was too late. Where are the others? He asked, looking at Riley. What others? The 9th is on her way from Moldova. Those were his last words. 2 weeks in the hospital. Ina lay in her hospital room with guards at the door, staring at the ceiling. The doctor said she would recover quickly physically. The cuts from the glass were shallow and the bruises were healing. But a psychologist came every day. You've been through a serious trauma, Dr. Chen said. Recovery will take time. How long? It's different for everyone. Months, years. You may feel the effects for the rest of your life. Honest. Ina appreciated honesty after so many liars. Detective Riley visited her every other day. He brought updates on the case and asked the same questions. The investigation required precision. Once again, the day of the murder, he said, turning on his tape recorder. What time did Stefan bring dinner? 7? Maybe 7:10. And when did you hear the car pull up? At 6. I remember exactly because I was looking at the clock. Describe the man again. Short, about 45 years old, work clothes. He had an accent, but I couldn't figure out what kind. Every detail was important. The man in work clothes turned out to be Miguel Vargas, the owner of a small construction company. He helped the Mitchells get rid of the bodies in exchange for contracts to clean up construction sites. Did he confess? Ina asked. Partially. He says he thought he was transporting drugs, junk for the jury. What about Stefan? He's bargaining. His lawyer wants a deal with the prosecution. Ina imagined Stefan in the courtroom, recounting the details of the murders in exchange for a lighter sentence. That was how the system worked. Information in exchange for years of life. In the 3rd week, Maria Gonzalez arrived at the hospital. She was a tired woman carrying a folder of documents. How are you? She asked. Better. Thank you for coming. We need to discuss your future. We have a few options. Maria spread the papers out on the bedside table. The first is a visa for victims of human trafficking. It gives you the right to work and live in the U.S. But the process is long and involves a lot of bureaucracy. How long? From 6 months to 2 years. It depends on how busy the service is. And the second option? Return to Lithuania. The government will cover the cost of the ticket. You can apply for compensation through the International Court. How long will that take? Compensation? 5 years, if you're lucky. Ina closed her eyes. Bureaucracy is the same everywhere. Slow, indifferent, measuring human suffering in forms and stamps. What about the other girls? The ones who were supposed to come? Christina Lunga was detained at New York Airport. She's now in a temporary accommodation center in Queens. How is she? Bad. She doesn't understand what's going on. She thinks we're part of the scheme too. Can I talk to her? Why? Because I know how she feels. Maria looked at her intently. We have staff psychologists who have never been in her place. A video call was arranged for the next day. Christina sat in a small room, very young and very scared. She spoke Romanian with a Moldovan accent. Hello, Ina said in English. Are you a police officer too? Christina replied. No, I'm just like you. What do you mean? I came to America to get married. For money. Christina froze. How do you know? Because I was rescued from the same people. For the next half hour, Ina told her story. Christina cried, asked questions, and gradually began to understand what had happened. What now? She asked. Now we need to decide what to do next. I want to go home. I understand. But think about it. You were deceived and sold there. Here you have a chance to start over. I don't know anyone. I don't speak English. I didn't either, but I'm learning. After the conversation, Maria said, You talk to her well. Do you have any counseling experience? None. But you have something our specialists don't have. Personal experience. What are you getting at? We're looking for a counselor. Someone who can work with victims of human trafficking. I'm not ready. No one is ready. But you can help others in a way that no one else can. Ina was discharged a month later. Her temporary accommodation was a room in a refugee hostel in Corona, far from the city center. Her neighbors were from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Somalia. Each had their own story of escape. Rita came to visit her during the first week. She looked better. She had found a job at another cleaning company and rented a room in Glendale. How are you? She asked. Strange. I don't know what to do with myself. What about work? Maria offered you something. I'm afraid. What if I can't help? What if you can? Rita brought letters from the relatives of the murdered girls. Karina's family sent a photo of Karina with her parents on her birthday, smiling, happy, unaware that in a year she would die in a foreign country. They want me to come to the funeral, Ina said. To Poland? Yes. Finally, she'll have a proper funeral. Are you going? I don't know. I don't have any money. We'll find some. People are collecting donations. 2 months later, Ina stood in a cemetery in Krakow in the drizzling rain. Karina's grave was a simple granite stone with a photograph. Karina Novak, 1998 to 2023, beloved daughter and sister. Karina's mother, Barbara, was a thin woman in her 50s. She spoke quietly, struggling to hold back tears. Thank you for coming, she said. Karina deserved better. She dreamed of America since she was a child. She learned English and watched American movies. She thought she would find a better life there. I know. And instead, Barbara couldn't finish. Ina hugged her. Her death wasn't in vain, she said. Thanks to her, they caught the killers. Does that help? A little. At the wake, Ina met Karina's sister, Anna, a girl of about 20. She was beautiful, intelligent, with the same dreamy eyes. I wanted to go to America too, Anna confessed. After school, Karina promised to help me. And now? Now I'm afraid. If that happened to her. Not everyone there is bad. There are good people too. How can you tell them apart? Good question. How do you explain to a girl that the world is full of predators masquerading as saviors? Back in Los Angeles, Ina accepted Maria's offer. The job as a counselor was 20 hours a week, $1,000 a month. Not much, but enough to survive. Her first client was Ana from Honduras, 16 years old, brought over to work as a domestic servant. For 3 years, she cleaned the house of a wealthy family in Pasadena in exchange for room and board. No money, no days off, no contact with the outside world. They said the police would deport me, Ana said. I understand. They told me the same thing. What if it's true? Maybe, but living in slavery is not an option. The work was hard. Every story was like a punch in the gut. Girls from the Philippines working as undocumented caregivers, men from Mexico building houses for pennies, children forced to beg. 6 months later, Stefan's trial began. Ina testified for 3 days straight. The defense attorney tried to portray her as a liar who was framing an innocent man. You claim that my client threatened to kill you? Yes. But there are no recordings of these conversations. No. No witnesses either? David is dead. Miguel denies everything. So all we have is your word and the dead bodies of 7 girls. The jury deliberated for 2 days. The verdict: guilty of conspiracy to traffic human beings, complicity in murder and money laundering, 25 years in prison. Is that fair? Riley asked after the sentence was handed down. I don't know, Ina replied. What's fair for 7 lives? More than 25 years, but less than life. The system was flawed. Criminals bargained, victims suffered, justice limped along, but it worked. A year later, Ina moved into her own apartment in Hollywood. It was small, but it was hers. At Maria's, she was promoted to senior consultant. Her salary rose to $30,000 a year, the minimum cost of living in Los Angeles. Christina from Moldova got a work visa and found a job as a waitress in a Romanian restaurant. She slowly learned English, rented a room with 2 roommates, and sent money home. A typical immigrant story. Are you happy? Ina asked during one of their meetings. I don't know what that means, Christina replied. But I'm alive, and that's good. In the fall, Ina received a letter from home. Her brother had recovered from his operation, her parents had opened a new restaurant, and her younger sister had been accepted to university. Life went on. When are you coming? Her mother asked on the phone. I don't know, I'm needed here. What about your personal life? I'm not ready. Ready for what? To trust people. The truth was simple and painful. The trauma had changed her. It made her suspicious, withdrawn, incapable of intimacy. Therapy helped, but slowly. On the anniversary of the Mitchells' arrest, Ina went to the place where their house once stood. The new owners had demolished the building and built another one. Nothing reminded her of what had happened there. Only she remembered. And the families of the victims, and Detective Riley, who had transferred to the human trafficking unit. How are you? He asked when they met at the memorial park. It varies. Good days and bad days. More bad days? There used to be more. Now it's about even. That's progress. I guess so. They stood by the fountain where a memorial plaque had been installed. In memory of the victims of human trafficking. 7 names, 7 lives. You know, Riley said, last year we rescued 43 people. Is that a lot? It's a drop in the ocean, but every life saved is important. Like mine, like yours. That evening, Ina returned home and opened her laptop. On the screen was an unfinished article for Human Rights magazine. The editor had asked for a first-person account of human trafficking. She typed slowly, choosing each word carefully. Slavery did not end in the 19th century. It has adapted, become more sophisticated, less visible. Today, millions of people live in conditions of coercion, unable to leave. Outside the window, Los Angeles bustled, the city of angels and demons, dreams and nightmares. Somewhere in it, a girl was responding to an advertisement for work abroad. Somewhere, a man was promising a better life in exchange for trust. Somewhere, a victim was trying to escape. Ina continued typing. This was her war now, a war against oblivion, against indifference, against a system that turned people into commodities. She would not win this war, but she would fight every day for as long as she had the strength.